Yeah, now I've just looked up for the general agenda and welcome everyone who come here. I'm glad you found this place, and today we will have the 5th episode of our eDemocracy Talk series. And the general agenda will be like this. First of all, we are having a short introduction of the series, and then the presentation will start. And we've just decided that we are making a mix of presentation and discussion. And this will last at least 1 hour, and then in about 2 hours or so the session have reached the end. And so we are coming to the short introduction. I guess every one of you already actually knows what's going on, but as I don't know how many will find the recording and have a look for the series for the first time, I will say a short introduction. And eDemocracy Talk is a series which is initiated by the working group Meinungsfindungstool. And the sense of this is to create a broad discussion about the topic discussion tools, because we have noticed that there were pretty much people around the world who tried to create something like this, but don't really have a look at each other. And so we thought it would be a good idea to connect everyone and make sure that we join our forces to bring back our goal, which we actually all have in common. So so we have started the series eDemocracy Talk now, and we are glad that the interest for our series is pretty big, and the sense of it is, how shall I say it? Our working group has the aim to create a kind of a discussion platform which incorporates all different kinds of discussion methods, which people like, for instance, Roger have created. And by this we try to create a platform which firstly is a great benefit for everyone, so for developers, for users, and everyone who is interested in a more optimized discussion. And the second advantage is that we think that this is the fastest way to learn, and to learn how this discussion process can be optimized. And so I guess Rasha, could you please introduce yourself to the crowd?
Sure. My name's Roger Eaton, and I live in San Francisco in the USA. I'm on the board of the local United Nations Association here, and I'm also involved with the interfaith group called the United Religions Initiative, where I'm a web guy for the North America region, and involved with a couple of the what's called cooperation circles of the URI. So I'm been for many years actually developing this idea of InterMix Voices of Humanity software. I've tried a number of versions and had some success, but nothing nothing very big, and I'm trying again now, working with with my experience and hoping that this time I can make it go. I have, on the basis of my United Nations Association and URI connections, I have been able to get a number of people to say that they will sign up for my initial try of the InterMix platform when it's ready. So, and that I'm hoping is going to be before the end of the year. And I'm that's it mainly. As far as the pirate party, I don't know if we can really connect down the road. I would be happy, of course, if you would decide that you wanted to use InterMix in some way. And but more likely, what it is that I can learn something from your questions, and you can learn something from what InterMix is as you think about how you want to set up your system. So let's figure that that's, at least we get that. And if you decide down the road that you want to use InterMix yourself, which is a possibility, then so much the better. So I think that's to introduce myself, and now I should just go ahead with the introducing InterMix and explaining what it is, how it works, and then we can have a break for discussion at that point so that everybody is sure they understand what we're talking about. So first, I'd like to give an overview of InterMix. It is online software to elect messages aiming at an intelligent and believable global voice of humanity. By believable, I mean that we need tens of millions or hundreds of millions of participants so that it really represents people from the bottom up. You have all kinds of people, and that the process itself is respected and believed to be true, that is not corrupted, and so people will listen to what the voices of humanity have to say. I call it InterMix Voices of Humanity software. I also call it the Voices of Humanity project. Sometimes I say InterMix Collective Communication software, because the idea of electing messages means that groups of people can exchange messages with other groups. It's collective communication rather than individual communication. However, notice that you could also have a discussion between an individual and a group using the same process. My strategy, because we have it's very difficult. Facebook just soaks up all people's time, and so how can you possibly get something big going? So what I'm doing is I'm targeting the non-governmental organizations and hoping, such as UNA and URI, and hoping that I can get networks of those people involved and then gradually leverage up to involving all kinds of people even outside the civil society. The process brings in groups and then recombines the people to create 6 voices of humanity: for women, for men, for youth, and then I'm say middle-aged, but I'm calling it experience, and seniors I'm calling wisdom, and the voice of humanity as one overall. The source is written with Ruby on Rails. It's freely available at GitHub under the AGPL license, and so it's definitely open source, so we're okay that way. But I sometimes wonder if I made the right decision to go with Ruby, because I've run into some flack from PHP people. They don't want to even listen because it's Ruby. So I don't know. That's something maybe I can learn about, folks. So how it works? We have individuals, of course, participate, but they participate always as a member of a group, and each group has its own online forum. Then the groups can join together in a discussion, in a joint forum. So this means that actually one group can also have a discussion within itself if it wants to. But normally we would use this to bring together multiple groups into one area where they can all participate together in discussion. Now, a discussion period can have, a discussion can have a decision period where messages are elected to represent each group, and all the groups together have also a message to represent it. So something to notice here is that within a decision period, the message elected by each group is going to be different. And the message elected by all the groups together might be different from any of the messages elected by any particular group. If it's like a compromise or something, then the particular groups would have more extreme messages, and the overall elected message would be more in the middle, might be different from any of the messages elected by the groups. In a decision period, this is where we automatically recombine all the participants, so we can also see the winning message written by a woman as voted by the women. The same thing for men, youth, middle-aged, billed as the voice of experience, and seniors, the voice of wisdom, as well as the overall voice of humanity as one. Now, something to go into here is that the aim is to involve very large numbers of participants. So we have to assume it's impossible for everyone to read all the messages and vote on them. So how do we overcome this problem of too many messages for people to read? One possibility, and I've tried this, would be to have cycles of votes, where on each cycle people get 10 or 15 messages to read and vote on. And then we winnow down, we knock off the bottom 50% or whatever, and we go through cycle after cycle until we get down to 5 or 10 messages. And those 5 or 10 messages then go out to everybody to be voted on. So that sounds okay, but in fact, it's too cumbersome. When I coded it up that way, people couldn't understand it, didn't want to get into it, and it just didn't work. So now in this new version, I'm doing something quite different, where the process flows more smoothly. What we do is we divide the decision period into 2 parts. When a participant enters the discussion forum during a decision period, the messages are in this order. First, the participant sees that participant's own message. Second are the messages that are not rated. Now, if there's lots of messages, then those are going to be huge numbers of them. And so you just see a page of the messages, and go to a second page, and so forth. Third are the messages that the participant did rate, which normally you wouldn't get to unless there's relatively few messages. The first part of the decision period, the messages are in descending date order. The most recent message is first. So the participant comes into the forum, sees their own message at the top, and then sees the newest messages that they haven't seen before, have not voted on. And then, and so they get to vote on the very latest message. Then we have, in the second half of the decision period, we switch the order, and instead of having it by date, we have the top rated messages that the participant has not seen are at the top of the list. So we sort by the value of the messages as rated by other people. So this is now a kind of a crowd sourcing sort of scenario. We started just by date, so we got a lot of standardized. How do I say that? We don't want the top-rated messages to just take off and control the whole thing. So the first part of it, where it's by date, gives messages a chance to go against each other without having that crowd-sourcing possible distortion. So in the second half, when we're doing this rating, sort by rating, I'm using regression to the mean in order so that a new message that comes in can't get a few very high ratings and float to the top and everybody sees it. It's just unfair advantage of that message if it could do that. So I'm putting a pretty serious regression to the mean in which I'm implementing this way, that if the message has less than half, let's try this again. If the message has, now I'm a little confusing myself, but if the message has less than half the average number of ratings, then we add average ratings, average value of the ratings up to half the average number of ratings. So no wonder I confused myself. I hope I didn't confuse everybody else. And that, I can try to clarify that if you want to ask me about it. But it means that if a message, if the average message has 50 ratings, and then a new message comes in and it only has 5 ratings, well, half of 50 is 25. So we're going to add 20 ratings onto the 5 that it actually has. Those 20 are going to be the average rating of all messages. So this is going to pull that message toward the average. And it has to have at least half the average number of ratings before it is not being diluted that way and pulled toward the mean. Now that's not, I don't know, I think that's okay, because it encourages people to put their message in early, so it won't happen to their message that they get this regression to the mean. Anyway, this process now will flow instead of going through these cycles. And I think that it should work. So that's the basics. It's pretty simple, really. We have groups, and then we have groups join together in discussions, and then discussions can have decision periods. They don't actually have to be in a decision period. They can just have discussions without a decision period. But we do have the possibility of a special decision period where there are going to be winners. The winners are going to be one winner for each group, one winner overall, and one winner for each of the voices of humanity besides overall is one of them. And the other are women, men, youth, experience, wisdom. So that's it. If you have questions, please ask.
Roger, can you give us a link? I think it would be very helpful to see this with one's eyes, what you've just described. So is there any example discussion where one can see this?
I have only a test system. Let's see, you can't actually, you'd have to sign in and it wouldn't make sense to you because it's only messages saying testing, you know, and uploading photos and stuff like that. So I don't know that I do. But I am going to be opening up the system for further testing. I'm going to describe later in the discussion what the first testing is going to be. It's going to involve creating a steering committee for InterMix, and I'm planning myself to take the advice that I get online. Perhaps if I just say the whole thing again, are people confused about what we're talking about at this point?
A little bit myself. I can see very well the problem because I've been working on that same problem for quite some time of how are you going to have new messages without them being submerged by the older messages. And I understand that at the beginning you are showing all the messages first in chronological order, then you use this regression to the mean to decide the sum of them, and then you show them on a rating order. Is all this correct?
Yes, that's correct. You have it exactly right. It's not perfect. There's going to be very good messages that come in late in the process that are going to get submerged and not make it. But it's the best that I could think of and still keep the process flowing, which I think is a must. It has to flow.
Okay, now let me understand a little bit in the details because at the end the details are important. How exactly do you pass from the chronological order to the rating order? Is it after a certain amount of time, a certain amount of ratings? That I haven't exactly understood.
It's an administrative function at this point. So I was just going to divide the time in two, or that's what I'm planning to do for starters.
Okay, so for example, after 7 days, the administrators decide, okay, let's move on. And we have at that point 100 messages. Now, some of those have been there for the whole 7 days, some for 3 days, and a couple only for a few hours. How do you rate those that have been there only for a couple of hours? Do you just consider the rating that they got and take that as the average and project that as the whole length?
We take all the ratings for all the messages to get the average rating. And then for each message, and this is always changing as we get new messages and new ratings, we take the average number of ratings for each message. So that last message that's only been there for 3 hours is going to have less ratings than the other messages, and therefore it's going to have more regression to the mean.
What sort of ratings are there? Positive and negative, or more or less?
Yes, all right. There are 2 ratings. It's a dual rating system. The rating for interest runs from 0 to 4, and the rating for approval runs from -3 to +3. And the overall, what we do is we take the average interest times the average approval to get the value, what I'm calling the value of the message.
So it doesn't really, I mean, the average which you take before you move into the next stage, it doesn't really depend very much on the amount of ratings, right? It must not change because of the amount. It can stay the same.
Correct.
Okay, I understand.
Now there is another use where we take the total of the interest ratings times the average approval rating. And that means that if a message has been there longer, has accumulated more ratings, it would be higher in the list. But that's just, I'm thinking about that, and exactly where we would use that, I don't know, but I think it might be useful in some functions. So are we clear on the basics of how it works?
I have one question regarding this grouping, but before that I'd like to say that I really sympathize with this approach because your scope apparently seems to be the whole civilization, and I think it's great. We have other tools here which have a smaller scope, and just for my personal taste, this civilization scope is more my thing. And regarding this grouping, so there are actually, you said there were 6 groups, but the 6th group is actually an all-in-one group, which incorporates the other 5 groups. And do all groups have the same right? Are all groups equal? Do they all have the same right?
At this point, each individual vote has the same weight. There's going to be circumstances where we probably will want to weight the individual votes so that the groups have equal weight. But we're not, that's down the road. I'm not coding that at this point.
And what have you made go into this direction that you have a group for women and for men and for youth, experience and wisdom? Why you segregated these groups? What made you do this?
Our problem is that we have to, excuse me, 1 second. Our problem globally is we have to restart everything. It's really hard to do that on the international basis that we have now. And I'm thinking that the gender and age differences are fundamental to everybody, and that it will be interesting to people to listen to the voice of women and the voice of men, the voice of youth and so forth in discussion with each other, because we don't know what they're going to say, and so there's a dramatic element there that might pull people in. That's going to be, the question of whether we can actually get people to use the system is the big one. And so especially because the women's movement is very powerful, there's a strong current among women in the whole world that they feel that they need to get together and work with each other to change the way things are done. So that women's movement, I think, is humanity's best ally. This is our best voice, our best, strongest global current going forward. And youth maybe is coming up, so we'll see, and we're covered on that. And then the men, excuse me, the men will come in, but they'll be in a different position than they are now, because they'll be co-equal with women, and they will not be as dominant forces within the nations. Instead, they will be co-equal with women, and so it's and they'll be in a system where the voice of humanity as a whole is over everything, as a to coordinate it, to offer compromise and so forth. So it's a possibility, and it's different, and it might actually go. I'm not saying. I wish I could say that it will, but my experience is that this is not an easy thing to do.
So okay, I see. So this six voices of humanity is kind of a pull factor, and I think this is indeed doable. I've already heard that, just for instance, if there was a crowd of women and they are alone for them, then this causes a different kind of discussion culture. Also, they act a bit different, as if the group is mixed. So, well, one really could do this, but as you explained, another question has arisen for me. So, on the one side, we have this six voices of humanity, and on the other side, you've talked that the system incorporates grouping. So is this the same? Do you always meant a certain voice of humanity when you speak about a group, or is this group does this group emerge by a certain topic? So just an example, a group which likes to promote gay marriage.
Yes, well, for instance, that group would have many chapters, and many different organizations would be involved, and it could use this InterMix system in order to bring together all those different organizations and chapters from around the world in order to create a global voice for itself. What I've coded so far doesn't do all of this by any means. It's quite a puzzle. I'm just listening in the next room. I'm sorry, 1 second. Okay, I think we're okay here. So one thing more just on the technical side to understand, each group gets its own voice, and within a discussion or within a decision period. And then we also allow within each group to see the voices of humanity within that group. So if we had the gay marriage network, and we also had, I don't know what else, some kind of a human rights group, and they were in the same discussion, then we could look at the women in the gay marriage network, the lesbians presumably, and we could look at the men in the gay marriage network and see their particular winning message within the decision period. We could look at youth, middle age, seniors for them, and we could do the same thing for the for the human rights group that was involved in this discussion. And we could look at the combination of the two groups overall and see the women, men, and so forth. And because it's all automated, you can do the interesting thing too, I mean just a curious thing, which is you can see what message the men picked of the women's messages, and vice versa. So it's just out of curiosity. All that information is there. That's already coded and available.
I have a small question I wanted to ask also, if I can.
Sure.
You spoke about two different rating type, interest and approval, and then we have first it's sorted by chronology and then by rating. Now, how are you sorting it by rating, considering that you have two different rating type? How do you connect those two rating types?
It's by what I'm calling value. We have interest and approval. And if we multiply the average interest times the average approval for the message, we get the value. So it's sorted by value.
Okay, thank you.
These ratings, the problem with a dual rating system is that there's bound to be a correlation between the two ratings. And so we're putting the user through hoops to do two ratings instead of one. But in general, what they're going to do is they're going to give high interest to the same message that they give high approval to, and the other way around, low interest if it's low approval. But I found that we have a problem, which is that if we're just looking for approval, we tend to all agree that we want peace. Well, that's true and it's great, but it's not interesting. We already knew that. So anything we can do to bring the more interesting items more to the top is helpful. And once in a while, we actually do get a case where interest and approval are different. One example, somebody in when I was trying this a few years back, suggested that we should have the optional death penalty for any person in jail committed as a felon. And in return for having themselves executed, they should get $20,000 for their family. This was put forward as a cost savings method. So everybody thought that was very interesting, but very disapproved. So there was a case where we saw a definite divergence.
I am just surprised by how much of your work is correlated, I would say, with the work that I've been doing also. So I'm very, very interested. Please continue.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead then. The next part, I'm going to go through some design elements that I haven't mentioned. One is that we have email access to the forums, and that's done. Another is that we can filter the forum by all of these different factors. We can filter by age, gender, group, we can sort by date, by value, and by controversy. Controversy is the spread of the approval ratings, not looking at interest, just approval. So it's the standard deviation, you know, the one step before the standard deviation, the spread of those. Then we don't have this yet, but it's going to be there within the next month or so. We're going to have a simple wall where everything that you've posted will be on your wall, and you can also post to the wall. Even then, it won't go into any forum. It's just on your wall. And we can invite a friend, we can follow people, and we can have private messages. So that is almost ready. Another item that should be done this year is I want to have a simple subgroup capability, because I'm thinking we can use that here at our United Nations Association group to break out our subcommittees. We need some way to make this system useful to the NGOs that come in. And if we can have the ability to handle subcommittees within the system, that could be attractive. And this is a big one now, and this is not that hard to do, and we're going to be able to get this early in 2013. We're going to be able to automatically tweet and post to Facebook and post to a blog in iFrame the highly rated items from groups and the Voices of Humanity. So this is like a stream, and this is the voice of these groups and of the genders and age groups, is this automatic posting of their most highly rated items. To do that, it's not quite as simple as you'd think, because you have the problem of new messages. Anyway, so the way I'm proposing, and what I think the way we're going to code it, is that we're going to allow the group administrator or the overall administrator for the Voices of Humanity overall to set a percentage. Like you might set that the top 2% of all messages that have a rating. Let's forget the ones that didn't even get rated at all. The top 2% of those messages will automatically get tweeted, Facebooked, and we'll determine that they fall into that top 2% because we'll apply the same regression to the mean. So that means that a new message that gets high ratings won't just automatically get tweeted or Facebooked, but instead it has to actually have a serious body of people behind it before that can happen and be in the top 2%. So I think that's going to be neat, and that will connect us with Facebook and so forth. And really, I think we'll see, but I think that's a great feature. Then now this is going to be next year's. We'll put this in, but each group will be able to set its level of what it allows to be exported. The message is allows to be exported. Like it'll say, oh, I only want the top 25% of my messages to be exportable. Or I don't want any. I want it to be a private group. Or everything's open. So whatever that percentage is, if they do allow export of messages, we're going to allow groups that are more like in the nature of networks to import messages from other groups. And groups can then therefore position themselves in a hierarchy. But it's up to them where they put themselves. If they put themselves really high, but they're a small group, their own voice just gets lost, and all they are is just a flood of other messages from other groups. So I think that it will work. It's going to take a little more thought. When we get to it, we're going to have to put more thought into it. But this idea of being able to position yourself in a hierarchy is important. Then even more difficult is this I hope we can get to next year, is a generalized, bottom-up, reticulated hierarchy cross-cut by the networks, by the geography, and by subject, as well as by the 6 voices of humanity. That's a mouthful, that reticulated hierarchy. I had to look it up. But what it means is like a network, but it's hierarchical, but it's also network-like. It's like a fish net, but it's also hierarchical. it's connected in many different ways, and there's many paths from the lower levels to the higher levels. Again, this, well, geography is going to be obvious, but we're going to connect it with this self-made bottom-up hierarchy where groups position themselves. So that I think solves a whole lot of problems that we've been trying to get to. How do we bring people together on the same page in a flexible way that does not destroy their own ability to control their own area? So, and then I want to implement the sending of collective messages from one group to another. And it's important that we get apps out there for Android and iPhone, particularly for Android for going global, as well as for Facebook. And then there's the whole question of administration, because it's not democratic if we just have somebody saying what's what. How do we decide what's a decision period? What is the topic of a decision period? So this needs tons of thought. It's just out there as a bullet point at this point, and it's going to be a process of implementing that. It's not going to all go in all at once. And then finally, we need, if it gets that far, then we're going to need major, either it has to be adopted by open source programmers in a big way, or we need major money, and not that major, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in order to re-implement the whole thing. It has to completely be rewritten at that point in a peer-to-peer fashion, so that people can trust it. That means that at that point, not only is the source not owned, but the network is not owned, so that we're completely out there. But doing it again, peer-to-peer, I mean, that takes really good expert people way beyond it. So that's the direction and design elements that I know about. I'm worrying that I'm missing some important dimension, that I just don't see it. I'm blind to it. So I'm hoping in your discussion, ask me questions, and maybe we'll all learn something about what's missing.
I have two questions. The first question is a simple one. Does the discussions have a deadline, or are they permanent? So
right now they're permanent. The decision periods have a deadline, but the discussion periods are permanent.
Okay. So my second question is, as I am seeing it, your system is not about information, but about the other two sections of the will-forming process. So it's about discussion and it's about decisions. Is that right?
Well, it's about discussion and decision, but it's not good for making law. The kind of decisions that we're going to get from this are more on the order of creating a good feeling among people that they're in this together. And then it's going to take other tools to actually come up with detailed solutions. This is not good for detailed solutions.
Actually, it is about information, because it is the voice of men, the voice of women, and that is an information.
I think it's important information. When we start listening to that, I think we'll change our ideas about things.
Yeah, of course, this is an information, but not to this extent like an information system which tries to visualize, well, right where I'm saying this. I guess, Pietro, you are more right than I thought, because actually my understanding of an information system is that this is a system which takes data and facts, so things which you can't argue about, and tries to visualize this to create a bit more benefits and to make all data more, what shall I say, to have a better overview about the data. And well, if you have data like the gender and stuff like this within the system, and so you see the voices of, for instance, men, then this in fact is an aspect which is kind of like an information system.
Yes, I think also what is important is that Roger really is making a big effort to try to come up with something which is as objective as possible, a little bit like a poll, or a poll, you know, a statistical poll. So if you're running a statistical poll, the results of this would actually come out as an objective measurement of what the population wants. And in a sense, this is just making the same thing a little bit more liquid and a little bit more smooth, but it's still on the same order.
I'm still interested. What am I missing here? You know, I'm sure that things are going to come up as we go forward.
Well, I do have a suggestion, and I'm not sure if this is what you're missing, but you know, maybe something that you could consider.
Yes, please.
For the rating type, you have on one side interest and approval, and then you're connecting them by taking the product of the average, and then you have to put a threshold and so on, which is a lot of things that are very complicated in a sense. What if you were to take the Pareto front of the interest and approval? How would that be?
I read about that in your writings on meta-government, but Pareto front is something that I need to know more about.
Sure.
Is it something that you can explain in a few words, or I mean,
absolutely,
5 minutes even?
Or even much less. We say that a proposal or a voice or a claim dominates another one within the same group if it has both a higher interest and a higher approval than the other, or either a higher interest and the same approval, or a higher approval and the same interest, but not a higher one and a lower the other. You know, it has to be, so just consider a higher, both higher interest and higher approval. Yeah. And then you take off, you ignore all the messages that are dominated by something, and then you will end up with some messages that are undominated, and by itself you will not have to decide which one are in and which one are out. You will find some that have a very high interest, some very high approval, and some which has very high interest and approval. In fact, the one that you're looking for will always be in this group.
I'm not sure I understand yet. What's the difference between just picking the winner and doing that?
Well, for example, wait a second, let me go online and look for a nice graph, and I show you with the graph. That's probably better.
Okay, great.
Okay, maybe in the meanwhile I can ask a question.
Sure.
Okay, the way I understand it, I get the picture that the user will be, I mean, the experience for the user will be something like you have an endless list, basically, of messages, which you are supposed to rate, and you never make it to the end. Is this right?
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine this must feel quite frustrating to the user.
Yeah, it may not go. Really, I don't know, but I don't know how else to do this. This is better than the cycles, where we winnow down to a few and then everybody sees those. But you're right. It's a problem. You know, the one thing is that the messages that are being voted on are the root messages of a thread. I haven't mentioned this, but we can have replies. So the user is also able to reply, and we can have conversations about the candidate messages. So that makes it more interesting to the user right there.
You mean the simple fact that you can talk about it and discuss it?
Yes, you don't have to just rate.
I see.
You can also reply to any of the messages that are up for being winners. The replies are not up to win. However, they're available to be selected to be put out, automatically tweeted in Facebook. But in the decision period, only the root message is available to be a winner.
I see. I don't know, maybe there are solutions for this problem of frustration, which I mean, I don't know, I would expect it for me at least, to have a list, and you can never, you don't make it to the end, and it feels like there's lots of work still to be done, and it's too much. But
maybe we should have a limit. Oh, you have to go away after you've done 25. We don't allow you to do more than 25.
Yeah, that's what I just thought. There is probably some sort of solution where you limit it to 10 or 20 or whatever. And I don't know, maybe the next time you can start again.
They don't have to actually see the whole list.
So, Pietro?
I said that they don't have to see the whole list. One system that we were thinking about would actually present the proposal to be evaluated, starting from the proposal that have been evaluated less times, and being non-transparent over all the proposals that are there. So they do not actually see the whole list and don't have this sense of frustration. By the way, I found the Pareto front picture when you guys are ready.
Okay.
I'm seeing it right now. It looks like a boomerang.
Yeah. Have you seen it, Roger?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't have a concave. It can be concave or it can be convex. But the idea is you see those red dots. Now, each of those dots represent, in a sense, a proposal. And here it says objective 1, objective 2. You can consider those two lines as interest and approval rate, the two range in interest and approval rate. Now, the idea is that a dot will dominate another if it is higher both in interest and in approval rate. So the one that are in this blue line are actually the one that do not have anything that dominates them. So if you take the Pareto front, you're actually taking this line, which is a kind of a very wide set of solutions that cover all the range. Whereas if you just go for the multiplication, like you are suggesting, you would probably go and get the middle ground, which is this one in the center, which has a 2 above and 2 below, and then, the 2 on the side. I don't know if I can get myself understood. And they are probably going to be very much more similar between them, maybe with only one word different or something like that. So you're going to get less diversity on your result.
Yes, I think we might be able to do something with this.
Just give it some test.
I definitely understand it now, and thank you very much for that idea.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's go on then. My next section is about the theory that I'm working on, that InterMix is an expression of. I'm of the opinion that we live in a world where we all win or we all lose. This is our situation as we are heading rapidly towards a population peak. The Earth is round, and so we are going to have a tremendous transition as we go into a period of declining population after some 10,000 years of amazing growth in numbers. My sense is that we're already in the transition period, and to get through it without blowing up the world or devastating it by crossing nature's boundaries, we must transcend our national identities and develop a heartfelt sense of human unity. InterMix is designed to capture the national and religious identities in a system that is capped by the voice of humanity. We love our nations and religions and won't give them up, so we need to be thinking how we can motivate the nations and religions to be willing partners in the global effort that is required beginning today. Working in our favor, there is a natural alliance between the individual and humanity against the excesses of the nations and religions. As individuals, we support humanity so we can end war and torture and poverty, find a way to live in harmony with the natural systems of the earth. In return, humanity, which after all is us, cherishes and protects each of us as free individuals whose potential is to be nurtured, not cut short. The 6 voices of humanity are the key outcome of the InterMix software. They will create the global consciousness that is the sine qua non, that which cannot be done without, of the transition to a sustainable civilization. Global consciousness is the underlying requirement. At the global level, messages from these 6 voices will be extremely likable in the Facebook sense, but more than that, they will be important because so many people from all over the world will read them. Because love and wit are what everyone appreciates, we can expect the 6 voices of humanity to be consistently kind and intelligent. Narrow-minded and hateful messages will always draw a large negative vote from one segment or another, and so can never be selected to represent humanity as a whole. The ever-wise and gentle humor of the voices of humanity will redefine the other, quotes, you know how that, the quote, other, unquote. We can even hope to deliver a salutary shock, a saving shock, as the participants realize one by one that the human race is on their side. Consider the hardliner's dilemma in deciding whether to participate in a Voices of Humanity discussion. If no, then they lose all influence within the discussion. If yes, then they are legitimizing the notion that we have a common humanity. At first, the hardliner hawks will shun the InterMix discussions, and that will create a safe environment for the doves to get things started. The moderates will join in, and the hardliners also in the best case, or they will be sidelined. What we have to offer the nations and the religions is their own voice. For Europe, a much stronger sense of belonging. For Islam, the Ummah. For America, a sense of unity. That's the theory that we can offer to the nations and religions a strengthening of their identity. And that's what's attractive to these partitions of humanity. But since it's within the overall sense of one human race, it's okay that we make this offer to bring together the Shia and the Sunni and all the parts of Islam into one might seem scary to some people, but within the context of united humanity, I think that is okay to do. And this is what can bring in the Islamic world into this project. So that's the theory. It's not proved. It cannot happen unless our direction is towards the eradication of poverty. I think that's a must here. But we do have the necessity as our ally in this drive to create a global human consciousness. The process of building up the voices of humanity should work to bring us together. It can provide a framework for the global citizens movement. That's something that I think everybody, that phrase is an important phrase. GCM, Global Citizens Movement, that we need to see if we're going to get through the next 30 years in one piece. So I thought maybe we could break for a discussion of that theory at this point. Any thoughts?
I think you said something to this already before, but I didn't quite get it back then. Do you, I mean, is it possible with a system to, let's say, to come up with the voice of the American women, or the voice of the German elders, or experienced, or how you call them? I mean, you see what I mean? Can you filter all the stuff into whatever groups you want?
Yes.
I'd like to add something. I had the same question kind of in me, and so we have this 6 voices of humanity, and within the theory you've taught that nations could cooperate better, and my thought was, isn't this 6 voices approach something which goes rather against nations, because it doesn't divide people into nations but into other categories, like for instance gender?
Well, I think we can't get away from nations. You remember the experience of the socialist workers movement before World War I. It was very powerful. It covered Europe. It was amazing. But then came World War I, and everybody just, went to their nation and joined the army. The strength of nationalism is huge, and we can't go against it, in my opinion. And instead, we have to try this idea of capturing the nations. And I don't know, but I haven't heard any other idea put forward that might work. I don't know, maybe that didn't answer your question. The voice of women is one of the ways that we distract the nations. The voice of women and the voice of men. These voices, these go across the national lines, and in a sense dilute the national identity. But in the same system, we also have a voice for the nations. So the fear of the nations that they will have their identity diluted is overcome, I think, by the fact that no, we're actually providing a place for each nation to have a voice, to become a undying identity.
So my impression of this is that how shall I say it? It's not that easy to say this in English. I guess the bottom line still is that it is rather goes a bit more away from the nation concept, and that just because there was this other option of this 6 voices of humanity, and in case you want to hear, for instance, the women of Italy, then you have to do more effort to do so. You have to filter more. And I guess just the fact that the system demands from the users to put more effort in this and to filter more is can be interpreted that it goes a bit away from this nations concept. This is just my impression.
Well, I don't think that the nations are the only, the way that I'm thinking it will be implemented is that we're starting with the civil society groups, and so they're going to have a natural front runner position. But then we're going to, the nations are going to want to participate, I think, and that's good if they do. But when people come in, I don't know how the front end of this is going to look at that point. This is down the road several years when we actually have this working. How is it that when we come into the system, where are we going to land? Are we going to land on the voice of Germany, or are we going to land on the voice of youth? Or it's probably going to be up to each person where they land when they come in. I'm guessing. I mean, this has to be worked.
Roger, I still don't quite understand. Is it just a filter mechanism which is applied after the voting or rating, or the filter to filter all the ratings concerning age or gender or whatever other category you can have, nationality and so on? There might be even much more, right?
Yeah.
Or is it in the rating already that you form a group beforehand and then you are like in the American male group, and then you start to rate and the group comes up with a result?
Right now we're putting the whole thing together every time you look at it. I don't think we can do that when we get big. So that's one of the things that the rewrite will have to handle, is to somehow enable us to have a fast enough system that is as flexible as we want. But right now, when you come into the system, you come in as a member of a group, or you are the member of one or more groups. And on a menu on the left, you can click the groups button and you can switch between groups. You are not simply defined as your demographic characteristics. You are also defined as a member of groups that you have joined, and they're equal as to how you access them.
So it means that it's not that you define yourself in your profile. For instance, I would say I'm male and I'm 28, but it's rather that you are searching for the groups which are fitting to your personal profile, like searching for any Facebook group. Is that like this?
It's both ways. So in your profile, you define your demographic niche. You are male, you are youth, but there are also groups, and you can go and visit the list of groups, and the ones that are open to be joined, you can join them. Then you can visit those groups, and you will participate in their forum as a male youth.
It could be that you already explained it and I just didn't get it, but I'm imagining myself being in this system, and then there was one topic, for instance, what shall I do? How to make sure that the climate change will end up good for us as humanity, and then I will create a posting to this where I suggest a solution, and I'm doing this in the group of men in Germany, for instance. And then my interest would be that I don't have to repeat myself in the other groups. So is there some kind of connection so that I don't need to take my posting and go through all my groups where this topic is discussed and then post my my contribution?
Yeah, good point. That right now we do not have categories or topics are not addressed yet, and that's important. I think that categories and topics also have a kind of hierarchy, but we don't want that hierarchy to be imposed from above. Instead, I'm hoping that there's a way, I think there's a way where we can build that hierarchy from the bottom up. So global climate change would be somewhere located within that hierarchy of topics, and exactly how we can, I mean, you can go to that topic and you can post your message there. Now that's like a group, but how is it then going to show up in your German group as by you? I think I haven't thought this entirely through, and in fact, I know I have, and that's why I really said that this has to be thought through. That part of it is not completely clear to me how it can work. But you're right; it has to somehow work there.
I'm already noticing this. And another thing to mention regarding this aspect of efficiency is actually it's pretty important that discussions are, how shall I say it, that the discussions are not extremely parallel. So I guess a discussion structure or a discussion system should make sure that if there was one topic, like I want to talk about where the next football or the next soccer World Cup should be, then I think it's important that the system refers everyone to this question, instead of that everyone is starting exactly the same topic once again. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and it doesn't seem easy. It seems like a difficult question. Have you found in the discussion so far? Have you come up with a solution?
Yeah. Now that you are saying it, I think of something.
I would like to add something, and it's kind of related to what we've been saying in the chat line also, and that is, I am absolutely not convinced that this tool would go toward the world peace, but what I actually think is that this tool is a great tool for dialogue. I mean, it's a tool where when you have two parts, which could actually be, Jewish and Arab, or could actually be man and woman, or young people and older people, then each of them is being given a fair place to be able to say what they want to say and to have a real dialogue between the two sides, which I think is not what is around right now, because you always have the leaders which end up speaking for the whole group, and the leader, it's like they end up being on a side all by themselves. And so you sometimes find that the leader of one group are more similar to the leader of the other group than to the actual people of that one group. So I think that this tool can be really, really precious, but I do not think that this will actually lead to world peace. I actually think that it will lead to a real honest discussion, and where this will lead, I do not know.
I've implemented it in 2005. I implemented the idea as a Jewish-Muslim dialogue, and that's very different from an Israeli-Palestinian dialogue. The way it was implemented was that we had the common humanity of the two groups first elected a message, and then the two groups separately each elected a message, and then we came back together and had a common message, and we moved apart, and then back together. And it worked very rapidly. I mean, the first message had to do with the similarity of the two religions, that the worth of a single human being is the same as the worth of everybody. So the human rights is so important in both religions. And then the second one was the Islamic voice keyed off of that, said, well, yeah, but, then coming back together, they agreed, yes, but, so we really have to take that seriously. And then eventually they came up with a plan for improving Jewish-Muslim relations in Southern California. And we, it was like, took 3 weeks to do this, but we weren't connected. The organization that was doing this was not well enough connected to be able to fund it, so it didn't go anywhere. But that's what you're thinking of, Pietro, right?
Up to a certain point, and I do have some doubts. Can I speak a moment? Because when you do, I mean, I've been in several situations of international groups with people coming from all over, and at the beginning everybody is very friendly and everybody is coming with the best step and wanting to put the best intention forward. And then you stay there one day after the other and after the other, and at some point after 2 or 3 weeks, that's where the point where a person comes out and say, oh yes, we've been so nicely up to now, but let's now speak about this thing. And so my topic, I suspect that you just have touched the surface, but if you actually start to keep the tool longer, things will come out. In a sense, a shit will come out, and it's going to be a really good shit. It's going to be really good. No, seriously, it's going to be things that have been pressed down. And for each side to be able to hear it, and for each side to be able to air it, will be actually really good. But I don't think that the first statement will actually be enough. But I have a technical question now. If you have, for example, 1,000 Jewish and 500 Muslim, just because the numbers are those, and those are the numbers of people that came to your website, you can get each voice very nicely heard. But then when you try to make one voice of humanity with both of them at the same time, it will obviously be biased with respect to the bigger group, wouldn't it?
Yes, and that's the way it's coded right now. And there's no reason why we cannot have a way of weighting it so that the groups have equal weight. But the administration of that is hard. If we're going to have a bottom-up administration, we would have to have, right now we could do that, but we would have to have agreement from the groups before they're going into it that they want to have equal voice for each group.
Yes, understood. Thank you.
Okay, so how are we doing time-wise here? Well, we're getting on, aren't we?
Just for information, the recording is running now for 1.5 hours.
Well, what do we want to do? Do we want to continue, or should I wrap it up? The next section, if I continue, has to do with ideas that I've come up with how we can use this process. Why I include these ideas is that I want people to know that this idea of group selecting messages is a fertile ground, that it can go in many directions.
Sounds interesting. Go for it.
Okay, so I'll do this pretty quick. One is that we can have local implementation. I mean, that's where we have the geographic network, the hierarchy, the geographic hierarchy. So that is important because most people's interest is local. So I'm going to try here in San Francisco to bring in the women's groups here for my first implementation, which is going to be sending a message to Michelle Bachelet. She is the executive director of UN Women. And so here we see an application where we elect a message to an individual. So it's a collective message from groups, but it's to an individual. And the input groups here are going to be the United Nations Association people that I have rounded up, and the United Religions Initiative people. So we're going to have two groups, and they're going to write a message to Michelle Bachelet. She used to be the president of Chile, by the way, and she's very good. Boy, she's great. And and then we're going to send her the women's message, but we're also going to send her the men's message. And we do have something of an in at the United Nations, and we're just hoping that we can persuade her to answer. If she will, then we can go around again and do the same process again, starting on International Women's Day. But this time, with her promising to answer, we can go out and really get a lot of people to participate from all around the world. So that's one implementation. Then I have something I call plants and animals, which it would be implemented at the school level, at high school and college level, where the students would adopt a species, and all the students who adopt the same species would elect messages to represent that species. I don't know if you followed American politics to know about Sarah Palin, but she was from Alaska, a conservative, and she would talk about going up in airplanes and shooting wolves. So I imagine that the voice of wolf might say, "Sarah Palin, go home." So anyway, so here we have a way of developing the interest of the students in a particular species. I think it's very educational, and we could put then the voices of the species, we could put them together in a voice of animals and a voice of plants, and then we could put those together into a voice of life. So then the voice of humanity would be located within the voice of life. So that's just an idea. I'd love to see it happen, but I don't have the resources. Maybe if InterMix gets going, then I can reach out, get that to happen. I have also another one on nuclear disarmament, I have a project I'd like to get going where we post photos of ourselves smiling for nuclear disarmament or scowling at nuclear weapons, your choice, whether you smile or scowl, and with a little saying, your picture on Facebook, and then we bring people in to a discussion on nuclear disarmament using the InterMix project. Another one is that, in the Middle East. In the Middle East, an obvious possibility, I think, here would be a discussion between the Palestinians and the Israelis. It's very difficult over there, but if we could get something going, there's a number of things that are happening in the Middle East. It's not all bad. And if we could get something going, and then we put that discussion within the context of an interfaith discussion. So we have all the religions, so we have a global discussion about the Middle East, with the voices being the voice of Islam and the voice of Christianity and the voice of Buddhism and so forth. At the same time that we have a discussion between the Israelis and the Palestinians. So that, I think, would be, it would start off with very few people participating in the region, but they might, the same people who wouldn't participate in the political discussion might join up on the religious side, and that might encourage them to join in the political discussion between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Finally, I have this idea that we need to, whatever we do, we need to bring it down to earth. So I have an idea for a nonviolent action arm of the Voices of Humanity, where the group of people who get together, who say they're willing to carry out the device of the Voices of Humanity. It would be informal. This would not be a sort of, the Voices of Humanity say do it, and therefore we do it, like a cult or something. But it would instead be that the intent would be to carry out what the Voice of Humanity has to say, listening also to the Voices of Humanity, and that the nonviolent action arm would have its own intermix discussion as it decides how to go about carrying out the advice of the larger discussion. So those are a bunch of ideas that I have how the process could be implemented. And then let's finish it up here. I think this is, I love this. I put everything into it, but it's not clear to me that I can make it go. The problem is not so much money. The problem, as I see it, is whether people will want to participate in something like this. This is a global network. Interest is local. Well, maybe I can get something going here in San Francisco. I can get around that, maybe. But more importantly, this idea of electing messages is foreign to people. When I describe this to people, some of them get it, and they say, that's a great idea. But most people go blank on it. They don't get it. They never heard of such a thing. It doesn't fit with what they're thinking. And so they can't absorb it. So I don't know that people will want to participate in something like this. Maybe it's a matter of incrementally getting people used to the idea, like the Michelle Bachelet discussion, that thing where we elect a message. That sort of is more understandable than the whole ball of wax. It's so complicated. It has so many moving parts. So maybe just by going in bit by bit. Anyway, that's my conclusion. And I would like to invite you all, if you would, I'm going to be testing InterMix. I'm hoping to start up the test certainly by December 1st. And the first thing I'm going to do is to have a steering committee for the process. I've got a couple dozen people that I respect who've already said they will join in that, and I'm going to ask them to use InterMix to give me advice as to which directions we should go. And I'm going to be the first person in the nonviolent action arm. I'm going to try to take that advice. I'm going to seriously decide, I've decided I'm seriously going to do my very best to implement that advice. So that gives the people who are participating some reason, maybe, some extra reason. And you are all invited if you want to participate in that, which that's also going to be a test of the software, because we're bound to find more bugs. We don't want to go into the Michelle Bachelet thing until it's bug-free. So that's going to be a test, and it's going to be first use as a steering committee. So if you want to join that, send your name and information to me here. How do I put here? I'll put my email here, Roger W. Eaton @gmail.com. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So very interesting. My impression of it is like it's like a huge sociology experiment. And after hearing your presentation, now I really understand why I think it's not that easy to, or why it's pretty much like a challenge to integrate your system into something like a neutral discussion platform. Because what you have thought so long really is something which we've never heard before. It's really, yeah, pretty crazy. I really had to laugh in a positive way at some points. So just for instance, the point where to give the animals a voice. And I really appreciate such ideas, and I think that they are very enriching. And the strength which I also see in this approach really is that actually all tool developers, for all tool developers, making a law or really making a resolution is the end of the story. And you go one step further with this idea of, well, let me just say it like action groups who really try to put all the words into action. And this is really something which no one else has thought about so far. And yeah, I'm really glad that you have presented your ideas here.
Well, thank you. That's very welcome to my ears.
Roger, I have one more question.
Sure.
But first I want to say that I'm also very much into this whole thing of how to say, it's about consciousness somehow, and an individual can have the consciousness of being a German and a male or a human and so on. I mean, it's all, and you can also call it identity and stuff. You play with this all, with all of this, right? It's in there.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I like this, and my picture is also that in the end it comes down to if e-democracy really works, if our tools really work well, then in the end we will come to a point where we say we as mankind want will do this or that or whatever. So it's all united then, all the men, all the women, all the young, all the old, everybody. And on the way to this point, of course, it makes sense to see what are the different groups and what are their positions and so on. Now, what I still don't get in your picture is, are there, in a sense, only individuals who rate proposals, and then you filter it, and then you say, okay, if you take out only the men, then they would say, then they rated this one the best, this sentence, this proposal the best. And if you filter out all the women, then they rated this proposal the best. And or if you filter out all the Palestinians, they rated this the best. And then you say, okay, this is what the Palestinians want, this is what the male want, this is what the female want, and so on. Is it like this, or is it that you filter beforehand and all the men come together and then they come up with some proposal?
No, it's like the first, only there's one more element, and that is that it has to be a message written by a woman as well as voted by a woman, and written by a Palestinian as well as voted by a Palestinian. The discussion happens within a combined group, where all the groups involved are combined into one discussion. You can see all the messages from everybody.
This is the other point I don't get. You speak of discussion quite often, and then I wonder, is the rating itself already the discussion? I mean, how do, for instance, the American women and the American men, they talk to each other, they discuss something. The men come up with some sort of message and the women come up with some sort of message. How do they then discuss with each other?
Well, we don't actually have that in place yet. Right now, it's just that they will have different messages. It's not actually this group sends a message to that group. That is down the road. I want to implement that capability where a particular group can send a message to another group. But right now, we don't have that.
So the picture is, at least in theory, that there would be some sort of dialogue this way, group to group. Question, answer, and so on.
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy to me too. It's really got to be worked out. It has to be worked out by a team, not just by people who are interested, not just by me ahead of time.
Because the other way to do it would be to have only Americans, and they come up with one sentence. I mean, instead of American women which come up with a sentence, an American man with another sentence, and they talk this way for quite a while until they sort of come together and have one sentence. You could start right from the beginning with only Americans which come up with one sentence in the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the idea of putting them all in one pool. That's how I've set it up. And then we break them out just by the ratings. It's easier. The idea of groups of people working together to work up a message, I'm avoiding that. It's only a matter of selecting a message which was written by an individual. There's no working up of a message here. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. This is, the corner I come from. There, it's more about people together coming up with a consensus, or a group coming up. Not even a group. It's just people coming up with some sort of shared, commonly shared position.
So you work on it, right? And you make changes.
Yeah, exactly.
You like and which you don't like. This doesn't do that. Not at all. What I'm talking about
I understand.
It doesn't do that at all. That, I think, is a useful tool under some circumstances, but to try to make something happen globally, I think it's too hard on people. You know, it's so much work, and then, but I can see that you could use something like that and then put it into this process somehow, where that's one of the constituent messages that gets voted on. And it would automatically start off with a big boost because it would have all the people who created it giving it high marks.
Okay.
Not sure. It doesn't. It's two different ways of doing things, and I thought about it for a long time, and I finally came down on what I thought was the simpler way.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to express myself that I feel. I mean, for my taste, it feels like the rating all the time. Rating only is sort of. I feel it's. For me, it would be something missing. It would be missing that I talk to people and not just rate his sentence, but instead say, oh, okay, it should be better, or I would make it a bit different. Let's do it together, like a wiki page or so. We work on it together, and it becomes better and better, and it's our sentence then, not just yours or mine. Yeah, and in this way, it's not becoming more and more and more sentences, but it stays one. And it's getting better and better and better all the time, and gets more and more support from more and more people. This is, yeah, like you say, it's probably two different ways of doing it.
It's possible that your method could be input to the InterMix method, but I don't know. You know, let's give them both a try and see if one of them catches on. If either one catches on, we'll be well ahead of the game.
I also think that this would be a good addition. I understand the status quo, because if everyone just puts his statement out into the world, I guess is the most intuitive way, because the process is like this. You bump into any topic, and then you have something in your body. You form an opinion, and you'd like to express your opinion. So this is definitely something which is a doable approach, but it really, I guess, especially because it's about forming an opinion of the group, would be really good if there was some more dialogue dynamic into this. I mean, if you have a look at the other episodes of this series, you will notice that there are quite a few tools who just exist extra to tackle this issue.
I think so. I think we need them both. The InterMix is not good at coming up with a detailed plan, really. It's only good at paving the way, at getting people ready to be able to accept a detailed plan. Right now, we run into what Pietro was talking about, where as soon as you get down to the details, people realize that they're not going to give in. And it's only if we really have a sense of being in one human race that we can begin to compromise. So I'm hoping that InterMix will do that part of creating the sense of one human race.
I am sorry, I'm really far away from this. Sorry. My sensation is that people will feel that this tool does not represent them, and they will not even participate.
That's very possible. That I've heard that elsewhere too. Yeah.
That's why I really liked your division in groups and the dialogue between the groups.
Pietro, why do you think people will feel that they are not represented by the tool?
If what comes out is is a phrase that does not represent me at all, then, well, of course, the tool is, my voice is not being heard, and so it's useless for me to participate. Better for me to do it in some other ways.
And this comes from the fact that you might not even have rated the one proposal which wins in the end. Is this the reason?
Yep.
But didn't you yourself propose a solution like this?
Yeah, but strangely, all the people that think it like me are not participating for some reason. Or maybe I'm just part of a minority. I mean, the more people are part of a minority, the more you actually have to support their view, because they are not going to be heard in the great grand mass of people. And as a result, a tool like this will silence all those minorities.
Yeah, I have the same feeling actually. I would be frustrated if I see that the male Germans say some sentence which I didn't even read before, which I just get informed afterwards that this is my position, so to speak.
I have a very interesting example.
Sorry. Go ahead, Pietro, please.
I have a very interesting example, actually, which is speaking about gender. And that is right now in Italy and in general in Europe, there is a lot of dialogue about females' right, males' right, and how fair all this is in terms of, for example, of divorce and in terms of laws that represent about working situations. So are women getting enough money in the work as the men, or is it less, and so on. And I find very often that, for example, men, when they are speaking in private, they might protest and they say, you know, it's I worked all my first part of my life to get a house, and then I divorced, and my wife got the house, and now I have to start again, and so on. But then they never say something like this in public. And for example, I would see a tool like this, as long as it is divided between men and women, you might have a dialogue where, as I said, shit comes out, in the sense things that have been kept down will come out. But in the moment in which you actually start to have a one voice for humanity that takes both sides, you will actually find that the most politically correct will suppress the less politically correct, and will keep on having a lot of unhappiness under, which will bring out violence in some form or ways.
I hope not. I mean, can't we have both? We have the voice of humanity that suppresses everybody but expresses our commonness, and we also have the separate groups each having their own expression, and so everybody's happy.
That's the question. When I'm looking into the resolution system of the private party called liquid feedback, I have noticed that being not represented by the common senses is the greatest participation killer. So right now in liquid feedback, it looks like there are really not that much persons active, and there are very much people who are not active. And if you ask them, why aren't you participating, then they say that they don't have the feeling that their input is enough, how shall I say it, that their opinion counts nothing in this system.
Very interesting.
Well, maybe we can. we can't answer this question. I'm going to keep trying because I put so much into it, and I believe that it actually can work out. But maybe it'll turn out that, just as it has been suggested, that because the particular groups don't win in the overall voice, perhaps there will be no participation, and then we can't use it. So there it is. We'll find out. So maybe that's a good enough, and we'll call it a day. How are we doing?
I hope my critique wasn't too strong. I mean, as I said, I think it's a really good tool for dialogue. I mean, it's only the voice of humanity that I have problems with, but the voice for the various groups, I think it's absolutely great. And maybe there should be something to let new group forms from the bottom up. If someone does not feel represented, they might actually raise a flag for a new group and get other people that are like-minded.
I would think so, yeah. Why not?
A question. For all this to work, you would expect to have a lot of people participating. Now, having people in websites is one of the biggest problem. And honestly, it looks like your tool really would start working when you have at least 100 people or even more. How do you manage to get to those people? And you said that you had already done some experiment. What numbers did you had on the past?
We had small groups of 25 to 50 people. I agree, really, I think we should be up at around 1,000 before we start seeing the best results. I think that I can, in the Michel Bachelet, I think I can get a couple hundred to participate just because of people that I know and that I brought in one by one, because of the strength of the women's movement.
Thank you.
Anything else? So once again, let me ask if anybody will join in the testing phase, and then you can really get a look at the process. I would love for you to send me an email.
I would love to.
Roger, I would also love to test or join the testing, but why don't you send a message to the lists we are on so everybody knows?
Okay, to the meta-government list?
Yes.
Okay, I will send a message to the meta-government list for people to join if they want to. What I'll do then, in that case, it's simpler. I can just wait until the time that we're ready to go, and then I can send the link where you can come and join the process.
Yes, please.
Okay, I will do that. That's probably the better way to go. Thank you all.
Do tell us a couple of days before, please.
A couple days before, yeah, okay. Will do.
Okay, it seems like then we've reached the end of this discussion, and yeah, I'd like to thank everybody who stayed here so long. And now I will end this recording. Just to inform you, this recording has lasted pretty much exactly 2 hours.